You fought for our freedom, and now we'll fight for your quality of life. We thank you for your service. You've made enough sacrifices. We won't let your hearing be another. We are Audiology Associates.
We never forget our fallen. I'm Bill Reynolds. I'm Director of Veterans Affairs. I write stories of our local veterans. I interview them, I collect their photographs.
I knew that my efforts here were never in vain.
And now we're shifting gears to do a video series so that you can meet these veterans up close and personal.
Some shrapnel came into my lower left leg. It fractured my fibula in 7 places.
Please join me in honoring these great Americans.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
In the spring of 1966, 19-year-old Bob Good received a letter from Uncle Sam ordering him to report for induction into the United States Army just 18 days later. Bob's mom dropped him off at LA's induction station, and in short order, he started his basic training at Fort Riley as a U.S. Army recruit.
We were in the 4th to 47th, 9th Infantry Division, Bravo Company, and we went through basic training. And, you know, it's hard to describe everything in basic training, but it's, again, they're taking a civilian and they're kind of breaking you down and teaching you some discipline and physical fitness and teaching you techniques to survive at war. And I think we pretty much knew we were going to Vietnam, getting trained up for that at that time. So we took it kind of serious.
The largest battle Bob Good faced in the Vietnam War took place on June 19, 1967. Bob was right there on the front lines fighting the Viet Cong with his platoon.
I think it was like 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm guessing it was sometime mid-morning, and all of a sudden the gunfire started, machine guns going on, screaming on the radio. I remember the captain, our captain was fairly close to us, and I could hear on his radio, and I had a little radio as well as a squad leader, had a little radio, and you could hear the screaming and hollering on there, and just all the frustration and all the machine gun fire and all that going on. And we moved up as close as we could. And I remember just being held up there for a while, and my lieutenant looks over to me and says, "Bob, some of our soldiers were just took a round, and they're needing an evacuation over," and I think it was several hundred meters away. So I remember there was several of us that ran across the rice paddy with the machine gun fire just all over the place, and we grabbed the person was Sergeant Jones from 1st Platoon that had taken a round, and I thought that he had lost both of his legs and an arm. I found out later, and I figured he was dead. But we threw him in a poncho, wrapped him up, and the 4 of us carried him back to an armored troop carrier boat where we could get him dusted off. Yeah, June 19th, you know, it turned dark, and we moved up pretty close. Yeah. And we were laying in a ditch, if you will, that was probably 6 feet deep. Meanwhile, we could hear on the radio some of the point element from A Company who had got pretty close to the bunkers that the VC were in, and we could hear them on the radio moaning and groaning. So we're thinking, hey, there's some guys alive out there. Yeah. And they're only like maybe 50 yards from those bunkers that the VC are in. And there's still the machine gun fire going on, and there's still all that. But the same guys in my squad, we Jimmy Miller and Jerry Mathias and a guy named Ernie Slavic and myself, we got our ponchos together, and then we crawled out there. Yeah. And that was pretty scary. That's probably the scariest I've ever been in my life. Yeah. But we crawled out there kind of below the machine gun fire, and then all of a sudden you'd see artillery would send a flare up. And so we're out here between the safety of that ditch out in the middle of the rice paddy, and all of a sudden you're lit up. You know, it was horrible. I was ready. I wish we could have done something about that. We tried on the radio, and then so we got up and we found guys alive.
Yeah.
And we pulled them back.
Amazing.
And brought them back to the river, and then the other guys, we had air mattresses, and so they were blowing up the air mattresses. They'd put these guys on the air mattress and then run them back towards where we had a helicopter. One of the highlights of that war for me is when I came back from Vietnam. We flew into San Francisco, I want to say Travis Air Force Base.
Yeah.
And one of those guys that we had rescued from A Company was there at the airport when I got off the airplane. How he knew I was there, I don't have a clue. How he knew when we were coming in, unless he somehow was able to get a roster who was coming, and he thanked me for saving his life. That was, I mean, I get tears when I think about that. That was the highlight of that war for me. But I really feel fortunate that I had the opportunity to go serve my country in Vietnam, especially in a combat role. Very few folks have that opportunity. And as a young man, I think we always wonder, will we be able to perform in combat? Taking care of those kids and giving them freedom. That's what we tried to do.
You kept us safe. You fought for our freedom. Now it's our turn. We want you to hear us when we say, thank you for your service. We are Audiology Associates.